welcome to What Now with Ann and Eric. Eric is having bit of reception problems up where he's at right now, but we're hoping for great insight from him because I feel like I don't have a lot to say.
Very. See, yeah. Oh man, this is gonna. Oh.
Eric, you're supposed to carry. You're supposed to.
Listen, you gotta tell him I'm supposed to be the one that carries the load here, so I'm prepared and I have good reception. You can't just spring it on me. This is no good. Oh, we're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it through this one. Just so you know.
It's gonna be a struggle. I feel that. I can hear you really well right now.
All right, so wherever I'm at, just stand right here.
Yeah, your face is frozen. It's a great expression, but I can hear you actually.
There we go. All right, then we're gonna have a great audio podcast. So hit it.
Okay, 3-word summary for me was what the heck?
You have to elaborate on what the heck.
Well, you're the one who usually does like too much reading or something like that. And this time I was just like, I told you had to carry it.
Wow, what the heck? Oh no. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Yeah, mine was I like Micah, so that was my 3-word summary. So
good.
It happens.
Was it because it was deep, or it was just like, I don't know?
I was a huge fan of it, and I like that it was like in the study Bible, it actually said like he's talking about salvation, and he's talking about like these people, Jesus hasn't come yet, and it's like, hey, there is going to be something that's going to help you out here. Like, it's going to happen. So I liked it. I don't know. It was a good message. I think it was timely. But, hey, I didn't know I would have to carry the whole thing. So
yeah, you got out. You got more out of it than I did. I just had like a weird week. Like, I kept reading verses from other books, and I was like, man, I really wish we were reading that. I think I was having like I don't know. It's like, dang.
See, and I think that's the lesson of this is usually I think this is the first week that both of us have been preoccupied with other readings, because usually it's me or usually it's you, but this week, because I had some pretty in-depth conversation on some hot topics, I guess you would say, with a couple students and a couple adults, and so I did like a deep dive on something else, and I'm like, oh man, I got bits and pieces of Isaiah, and then I dove into Micah because I'm like, well, I can get through those chapters because that's so yeah, it's definitely hard when you're spread out over different things and what was funny is because I really believe that Isaiah is an important part of the like I should really be paying attention to this. Yes. Like, it's a big chunk of it. And so to just kind of gloss over it, I was like, oh, I shouldn't be just glossing over this. So I need to really make sure the catch-up tip, add some of these in to the readings as I go to make sure I get it. But the one thing that cracked me up was, because Isaiah is kind of a big deal. I mean, if we just look at the size of the books, but if this is chronological, are we saying that Micah's doing his thing while Isaiah's doing his thing? And then, like, how do you compare the two? Like, who's the better prophet in this sort of thing? Like, what? Like, was this a street battle, like where some people go into I don't know. It was, I guess I should look at locations of what things happen. That's where my mind went. I'm like, which prophet do you go to at this time? But I don't know. It was a weird week. Let's just put it that way.
I think what mostly bugged me was, okay, so there are two kinds of prophecies. There is gosh, I wish I remember the terminology right now. I have it written down. But basically, there's a type of prophecy that is spoken about what is happening right now in this moment, and it's basically telling you what does God think about it. And then there's another prophecy that speaks about the future. So basically, the difference is there's a type of prophecy that's about your present, that's kind of reality checking you, and there's a type of prophecy that's about things to come. Well, I don't know enough about history during this period of time to differentiate. And so that was driving me crazy the whole time. And I was using my Bible app, and I was like, I should have had my study Bible open, at least so if there was like a reference, it could have been like, because even as I opened it up and I brought it specifically for this, and there is one of them that says, okay, in 670 BC, Assyria is going to take out Egypt, I think it was. And I was like, that would have been good to know during reading this. So I think what really threw me off is I was like, I feel like with specifically these type of prophecies, like it makes way more sense with historical reference. And I just had none of that.
Well, and that's where I think, like, reading the Bible, like, this is my huge moment of these past month, is that, like, I think we talk about reading the Bible like for the good news and for inspiration and life guidance, but also to look at it as a history book and to understand that, like, this stuff was going on, this was happening, and diving into that layer, which I've never read the Bible in that way, of where is this taking place, what's going on in the culture, what does life look like then, and how to really get into that part of it has been, it's probably the last month, because that's been coming up in conversation. Like, okay, yeah, we read that, what was going on in culture, what was it looking like, where were they at? And it's like, wow, yeah, I just wanted to be inspired and pointed towards Jesus and told how to live right. Like, but to do that, and that's, I guess, just me being the simple person that I am, look at it that way. But yeah, it's definitely
Oh, you froze. Oh, wait, you're back. You're back.
See, that's what I get for having something good to say.
But that was so good. I got most of it. So I think
there you go.
Matters.
All right.
I mean, to go along with that, like, I think one of the most important things to know when you're reading the Bible is context. Now, a lot of that you can get from the surrounding chapter and verses. So, like, if you read a verse of the Bible, a lot of times we have memory verses, like popular verses that are thrown on a wall or thrown on a card or whatever, and people will memorize them, but they won't have context. So some of them are very plain in their, interpretation. Some of them actually mean something different than you think because you don't know the context in which it was spoken. So to some extent, you can get that context just from reading the whole chapter or reading the book, and then you're like, okay, now I get what's going on. But like with this, because there's a lot of context that is not at all mentioned in these scriptures, I felt like I could not, I felt like I was concerned that I was not going to interpret it correctly, because some of them I was like, okay, this looks like what is called apocalyptic literature, which is like Revelations is apocalyptic literature. It's basically about the end times. But then I would read something else. I'm like, wait a second, this might not actually be apocalyptic literature. This just might be what's happening at this exact moment. So it was just, I don't know. I think that's what got me, where I was like, because I feel like up to this point, most of the context was just plainly there. And I, culturally, I knew some, but I felt like I just did not know enough for this. So that's why it's all you, Eric. I'm just.
Oh, listen. You said you said you had 4 verses. What verses? Yes. What verses were stood out to you? Where were they at? What?
Okay. All right. So I did pick out 4 verses. Um, a couple of them had meaning. One I was just like, this is the saddest thing I've ever heard. So the first one is Isaiah chapter 30, verse 2. And God is talking about Israel, and he says, "For without consulting me, you have gone down to Egypt for help. You have put your trust in Pharaoh's protection. You have tried to hide in his shade." And what stood out to me about that is how many times in life have we not consulted God on a problem and we have gone to worldly experts about something, because ultimately God is the ultimate authority, the ultimate power. But I mean, there's certainly been times in my life where my initial reaction was not to go into scripture or to pray, but it was like to go talk to somebody who was wise, so that stood out to me.
Yeah.
Same chapter, verses 8 through 11. "Now go and write down these words, write them in a book. They will stand until the end of time as a witness that these people are stubborn rebels who refuse to pay attention to the Lord's instructions. They tell the seers, stop seeing visions. They tell the prophets, don't tell us what is right. Tell us nice things. Tell us lies. Forget all this gloom. Get off your narrow path. Stop telling us about your Holy One of Israel." You are currently a black screen, but I think I can hear you.
Just keep going.
Well, I was thinking about, especially the times that we are in, where it feels like we're just coming up against the wall and there's this struggle. And even the times that this was basically directly after Jesus died, spoiler alert, and Christians were, persecuted like crazy. People didn't want to hear about Jesus. A lot of people didn't want to hear about Jesus. And I don't know, it kind of struck me, this idea of there are certainly people, even that I've just met, who casually say, okay, stop telling me about God. I don't want to hear about it. Or, this line of, which really got me, don't tell us what is right. Tell us nice things. Tell us lies. Forget all this gloom and get off your narrow path. And I was like, how many times in culture have we as culture been like, I don't want to hear about, the law of God. I don't want to hear about what is right. Tell me the nice things. Like, tell me what's going to make me feel better. Tell me what is culturally accepted,
Yeah.
Like, how many sins have we culturally accepted because people just said, just stop telling us, please.
Yeah, and they don't want to navigate that. Like, they don't want to navigate the situation. They just want, hey, tell me what I'm doing is okay. And that's I get that we have a God of grace and mercy and love, and we love everyone, and I get that. But there is still things in life that you need to look at and you need to work through. And I think a lot of it is, no, tell me what I'm doing is okay, and let me surround myself with people that are telling me what I'm doing is okay. And I don't want to hear that maybe I need to change things or work on things, because that's difficult. That's a tough thing to do. And so, tell me lies, tell me tell me all this other stuff, but just don't tell me that I'm wrong.
Yeah. And what's so crazy, especially when I think about hot topics, and Christianity is so often accused of hate, which unfortunately some Christians legitimately screwed up.
Yeah, that's
if you think about religious history and how many really bad massacres occurred because we couldn't get our heads on straight, and we're people, not God.
Yeah.
But if you really boil it down to, hey, if you genuinely care about the people that you know in your life and you want them to live a life that is happy and is fulfilling and is actually going to mean something, you have to say something because you love them. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. I mean, ultimately, when we choose to speak lies to people, we're not protecting those people, we're protecting ourselves. Because
Yeah.
we are leaving them to a life that is less fulfilling than the one that God has for them. So,
Well, and that's once again, and I think but this is a good thing to talk about, is that you have relationship. You develop that trust. You let people know that you truly do care about them. You want to be in their life. And then you speak truth from a place of, we might not agree, but here is what I believe. Here is why I believe it. And I'm not going to stop loving you or caring about you, but I'm going to let you know where I fall in this and why. And most importantly, the why behind it. And then continue what we're doing. But yeah, you talk about church history and religious history, and they get a bad rap. But today, there's a lot of groups that are very vocal, and it's fueled with hate and anger, and it's like, that is
yeah.
not that's not the message to get across, and that's not how to get it across. But yeah, and
Be blunt,
unfortunately
some
those
people
are
are jerks.
yes, in whatever context, whatever group you travel with, some people are jerks.
Which is honestly one of the coolest things about Jesus. Spoiler alert again, how he navigated, like for example, tax collectors who were hated by everybody. And, partly because a lot of them cheated people out of their wealth and their money and, stole
Yeah.
their livelihoods. But Jesus, whenever he came up against somebody who was caught in their sin, even some of those taboo sins like tax collectors were very taboo, he would hang out with them. He would go to their house. He would eat with them. He would
Yeah.
care for them. He would still tell them, you should not do this. But never
Yeah.
at any point did Jesus go and slap one of them in the face. He was always
Yeah.
so kind. He was so kind about it.
Yeah.
So,
And so I think that's the biggest. If you want a big listen, you said you didn't bring anything to this week, but I think you brought the meat of what was going on with that. I think that's the discussion for this week, and that's really because you just saying that and bringing up that verse has encompassed like majority of my conversations this week. And kind of what's funny is what took me out of our reading plan and got me off track was just what you talked about right there, and it's in our reading plan. So it's like, just stick to the plan at what point. uh, but and I'm sure you have to have a Jesus verse. You have to have a Jesus verse. I mean, the
I did have a Jesus verse. Okay, so technically I put. But again, I was so thrown off. I was like, is this actually Jesus verse or am I imagining the context and what Jesus is happening? I know it's in Isaiah chapter 25. 1 second. Okay. So I think it's verse 7-ish. Or no, verse 6. So on this mountain, the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats, and the finest of wines. On this mountain, he will destroy the shroud that enfolds all peoples, the sheet that covers all nations. He will swallow up death forever. Oh, yeah, this is definitely Jesus. I was on point.
there you go.
The sovereign Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces. He will remove his people's disgrace from all the earth. The Lord has spoken. That's Jesus.
That's see, look at that.
It was just like weirdly bookended by some other stuff that was happening. So I was like, what? So I didn't get what was going on at first, but it was very cool. And I love how one of the things about the books of the prophets is that you get this kind of a bookend of destruction, justice, and then there's like, okay, but then there's Jesus that is happening. And then on the other side of that, yes, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were actually a lot of instances, and I wasn't originally going to bring it up because we've talked about it a lot, but there were, again, a lot of instances where God was saying, like he's talking about Egypt at one point, and he says, I'm going to bring destruction on Egypt. And it starts out like it's just, Egypt's just bad. He's going to take them out.
Yeah.
Then he's like, but then the Egyptians will turn to me and I will have mercy on them and they will become my people. And it's just so cool how Isaiah starts to open up for us this moment where God starts like adopting other people besides the Jews.
Yeah.
And you start to get this glimpse of what will be Jesus.
Yeah.
Where it says, I will wipe away the sheet that covers all nations, all peoples, all of them. And that's cool.
See, I got I think my Jesus verse was, and it was a little more kind of in your face than yours, but Micah 5 verse 3, it says, therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in labor bears a son, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach the ends of the earth, and he will be our peace. Who could that be?
It could be anybody.
It could be. Stay tuned. Stay tuned to see who that might be. But no, I just thought, I'm like, that sounds very familiar. That sounds very familiar when you read it that way. So
it is cool how if you're just kind of like, I mean, you don't even have to be fully paying attention, but those, if you know the story of Jesus, those things will stick out to you, which is pretty cool.
And this is where kind of maybe this is a helpful hint to continue through this plan, is I really am trying to stay in the moment, but I am getting so excited to get to Jesus after going through all of this. Like, I think I'm going to read, I'm trying not to skip around too much and trying to stay in this plan, because I think reading the story of Jesus, and once we get into the New Testament, I think it's going to have so much more weight to it, because and that's the thing where I think when you new believers or people just picking up the Bible, you're like, hey, stay in the book of John, let's stay in the New Testament, and that's great. But I think there's something to be said for at some point taking the New Testament out of it and living in this Old Testament world and staying in this, to then really understand how awesome Jesus coming on the scene is. I think that's something that I'm looking forward to.
It's kind of beautiful, like I was even especially this week, I was so excited for Jesus. And it was just like, I don't know, like, so I start looking ahead in my Bible plan, like, okay, how many days do we get there? Because I just want to be there now. But it's just kind of like this, I don't know, it's like this kind of beautiful anticipation of, man, we're stuck in this world. And we're waiting on Jesus. He's not here yet. And just think about, like, it's weird for us reading it. Imagine how the Israelites felt when they were living it. And they're like, he's going to come at one point.
Yeah. And I think that's what's funny about it is now we're in the part where there are, once again, there's prophecy of Jesus. So now we have, like, if you're the Israelites, you're those people hearing this, you're like, just get it. Jesus is like, it's coming. Like, why don't you get it? They're trying to tell you. Like, they're letting you know that this is going to happen. So I don't know. It's a good book. It's a good book, this
It
Bible.
really is,
I'm
yeah.
telling you.
And honestly, there have been some tough weeks and days
Yeah.
in this Bible reading plan, but this has honestly been one of the coolest, um, not necessarily enlightening, but I guess spiritually filling Bible readings that I have ever done. So I encourage people to do
There.
it.
See?
It's awesome. And to do it with another person is equally cool.
See, you know what? We're gonna make it. I think we're gonna make it.
I mean, by this point, I'm not going to drop out now. I have too many days
You know what?
invested.
But I tell you, with bad reception, with sketchy reading, we're gonna make it. We're gonna get through it. We're showing everybody out there that this is the craziness of trying to read through the Bible in 1 year.
You can do it.
And talk about it.
Yeah.
So, I think we got through it. I think
We
we got
did.
I think we got something that people are gonna really like. At least I liked it. So
Yeah,
even if
I did too.
I'm the only one that gets on the podcast, you
And
know
I
what?
feel much better
I'm
about
gonna enjoy it.
my 4 verses that I wrote down.
See? I'm here to make sure that you don't sell yourself short, that you know how great you really are, Anna.
Next steps.
Oh.
You go first.
Next steps, I just think really make time for your Bible. And that's
Oh,
really, and some
yes.
weeks are gonna, you know,
That is a
that's,
good next
I
step.
think, I just think carve out time, because that's, people always say, "Oh, start your day off in the Word," but once you really do it, and if you miss it, you can feel the difference in your day. I can feel the difference in my day if I hold off till the afternoon, or I wait till, I'm like, something just doesn't feel right. And so I just think, no matter where you're at in the plan, no matter if you've totally botched the plan or you're totally on track, make time to dive into it and see what you can get out of it, because no matter what, something's going to come out of it. You're going to you're going to find something to go with it. So that's my next step. It's just make some time.
Mine, I think, is more of a question, like a check. And
Oh, there you
my my question is, if someone asks you to just not tell them the truth, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And
I
the Bible talks about,
it's
even when sharing the gospel, to do so with gentleness and respect, which unfortunately we miss the gentleness and respect a lot of times. But we cannot be just as we can't be over here slapping people in the face because of their sin, because we are all sinners. We also can't be over here where we just don't tell them anything, because that's
yeah.
not helpful to them.
Well, and what really struck me to that point this week, like I said, it was a couple topics, and we don't need to get into that here because it make this podcast a whole heck of a lot longer. But it was a
Yes.
couple topics that are really hot button issues right now, and I was reading articles, scripture, trying to get all of these like facts together to have this discussion. And I had this discussion with somebody, and then they stopped me and they said, "Yeah, but where's your heart? What do you believe? What do you think? Like, what would you tell me, in your opinion, what your take is?" And I'm like, wow, yeah, like I want to tell people like what they want to hear or what I think they should hear. And it's like, at some point you have to take a step back and go, okay, but do I really believe that with all of my heart? And can I really speak truth to people because I believe it, or am I just speaking it because it's written somewhere? And so I think that's a really thing. Yeah, when you're faced with those conversations, what are you going to say to people? And is it going to be truly from your heart and what you are passionate about and believe in?
And to just do
So that's a good
quick
question.
piggyback off of technically both of our next steps. If you are a Christian and what you believe is based completely on what someone else has told you, you need to go to this Bible and you need to figure it out for yourself. Because there are a lot of Christians who most of what they believe, they only believe because they've heard it from someone else. They've never deep dived into the Bible and actually said, okay, but what does God actually say? You know? Because really, it doesn't matter what Eric says. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what your pastor says. Well, that's maybe blasphemous, but it doesn't matter what anybody says except for Jesus. So if you can't definitively say that what you know to be true is true because you've read it, then I think you need to start with that step of, okay, figure out what is true and then go from there. I think I lost you. I think you're gone. Okay, so thank you for listening to What Now with Ann and Eric. Eric is a black space. And oh wait, I heard you say something. He's gone. We look forward to talking to you next week on What Now with Ann and Eric. And get into your Bible. We would love to talk to you.